Princess Orlis of the Silurian Empire sat on her raised dais, her long silver hair falling like a waterfall over the fine silk of her robes. The grand hall around her was filled with ambassadors, military leaders, and scholars from across the stars, all waiting for her words. The polished floors reflected the light of the massive crystal chandeliers, and the banners of the empire fluttered softly in the artificial breeze. Orlis had always been known for her sharp mind. She loved studying the stars, learning about new civilizations, and discovering the secrets of the universe. But she also loved to challenge old ideas, especially those that seemed fantastical to be true. And today, in the middle of the annual Imperial Summit, she intended to do exactly that. "Tell me again," she said, leaning forward with a playful smile, "about these so-called humans. The tiny creatures from the Outer Rim who are said to fight as if they are gods." The court chuckled politely, some glancing at the ancient scrolls displayed on crystal stands. The legends of humanity were centuries old, stories passed down by traders and explorers who had only glimpsed humans from a distance. The tales spoke of small, fragile beings who could defeat towering alien warriors, survive impossible dangers, and even outsmart the most advanced warships. Orlis laughed, a clear, musical sound that echoed through the hall. "Really?" she said, waving her hand. "These creatures are no bigger than a child compared to our finest soldiers. And yet, they are supposed to defeat entire fleets, outwit our greatest minds, and survive alone in the deadliest parts of the galaxy? I find it hard to believe." Her advisors exchanged nervous glances. In the Silurian Empire, mocking old legends was daring. Mocking humanity was almost unheard of. But Orlis did not care. She had always been fearless in her curiosity, and the idea of a species so small and supposedly weak performing great feats amused her. One ambassador, a tall being with green scales named Varel, dared to speak. "Princess, the humans are known to possess qualities unusual among other species. Even our historians admit that their courage is remarkable, perhaps even superhuman." Orlis arched an eyebrow. "Superhuman? Or just lucky? Perhaps they stumble into victory while others fail by chance. Surely luck does not make a legend." She tilted her head, eyes gleaming with mischief. "I would like to see one of these so-called legendary fighters. If a human truly has the power of legend, I should witness it myself." Her words sent a ripple through the crowd. Some laughed quietly, others frowned. The Silurian court rarely saw the princess so openly challenge old tales. The day continued with the usual discussions, trade negotiations, border security, and reports from explorers on distant planets. Yet, Orlis's mind wandered back to the humans. She imagined what one might look like: small, weary, perhaps even clumsy. Surely no single human could match the strength and speed of a trained Silurian warrior. Yet the legends persisted, growing with each retelling, and that curiosity gnawed at her. As the summit ended, she requested a private viewing of the ancient scrolls and star charts that referenced humanity. The library of the Silurian palace was vast, stretching over hundreds of levels. Each scroll contained reports, sketches, and testimonies from explorers who claimed to have seen humans in action. Orlis traced her fingers over the faded images. Some depicted humans climbing sheer cliffs under alien suns, holding onto survival ropes as massive storms raged around them. Others showed them standing fearlessly against enormous alien predators, weapons barely larger than their hands. And some, most astonishingly, showed humans leading small crews to victory against entire fleets. She frowned. How could such small beings accomplish so much? She whispered, "There must be some mistake." Yet the more she studied, the harder it became to dismiss the stories. Every explorer's testimony was consistent. Every report mentioned the same traits: courage, intelligence, unpredictability, and an almost reckless tenacity. Her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of her chief strategist, a middle-aged Silurian named Kellen. "Princess, reports are coming in from the edge of our territory. A vessel has appeared near the nebula frontier. It is unregistered and unusual." Orlis stood, her interest piqued. "Unusual how?" Kellen consulted the holographic display. Its design does not match any known Silurian or allied species. Preliminary scans suggest it originates from the Outer Rim, the region associated with human space. But there are no signs of a known human registry. Orlis felt a thrill of excitement. Could this be the proof she had been waiting for? A real human, appearing right before her eyes? She straightened her posture, her earlier amusement now mixed with anticipation. "Prepare a boarding team," she said. "I want to meet whoever or whatever this is." Kellen hesitated. "Princess, the vessel appears damaged. It could be hostile. Our records of humans are sparse. We know very little about them beyond legends." "Exactly," Orlis said, her eyes sparkling. "That is why I will see for myself. I refuse to rely on stories alone. If humans are as extraordinary as the legends claim, I will witness it firsthand by the time the sun set beyond the massive crystal windows." The Silurian fleet had moved into position near the mysterious vessel. Orlis watched from the bridge of her flagship, the Empire's Pride, her heart racing with anticipation. The ship floated silently in the void, battered but intact. Its design was unlike anything Orlis had seen, sleek, angular, yet oddly compact. Its hull shimmered with an unusual metallic glow, and faint energy signatures flickered along its sides. "Princess," Kellen said cautiously, "this could be dangerous. We do not know how the crew will react. They might attack immediately if they feel threatened." Orlis smiled, a mixture of confidence and curiosity. "Then we will approach with caution, but we will not turn away. If the legends are true, they will not back down either." As the boarding team prepared, Orlis felt a sense of history pressing upon her. Centuries of stories, passed down through explorers, traders, and scholars, had painted humanity as both fragile and extraordinary. And now, in the silence of space, one of them floated within reach. The air in the control room was tense. Silurian officers whispered among themselves, speculating about what they would find. Some expected a crew of small, frail beings, terrified and helpless. Others feared the unknown power a human might possess. Orlis's mind raced with possibilities. Could a single human really match the might of a Silurian fleet? Could one being have survived alone against the dangers of the Outer Rim? She did not know, but she intended to find out. As the boarding team approached the vessel and sleek shuttlecraft, the princess leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the distant ship. She felt a mixture of doubt, excitement, and awe. Whatever or whoever was inside, her life and the course of her empire were about to change forever. The shuttle docked with a gentle hiss. The airlock cycled, and the boarding team prepared to enter. Orlis watched with a mixture of amusement and anticipation. If the legends were false, she would expose them today. If they were true, well, she could hardly imagine the impact that would have on her understanding of the universe. And then, the airlock opened, revealing a chamber that was dark, quiet, and empty, except for the signs of struggle. Scorch marks and scratches covered the walls. Panels were torn loose, cables hung from the ceiling, and at the far end of the room, a single sealed chamber pulsed faintly with life. Orlis's breath caught. Whatever was inside, it had survived, and she realized, with a mixture of disbelief and excitement, that the legends of humanity might not be exaggerated after all. The boarding team entered the mysterious human vessel with caution, their footsteps echoing softly in the metal corridors. The ship was dark, the lights flickering as if struggling to survive the passage through deep space. Every surface was scratched or scorched, evidence of a fierce struggle. Panels were torn from their mounts, wires dangled like vines, and the faint smell of burned circuits lingered in the air. Princess Orlis watched the live feed from the bridge of her flagship, her eyes wide with curiosity. The stories she had laughed at tales of humans fighting fearlessly against impossible odds suddenly felt less like myths. There was no mistaking the signs of intense battle. "Princess," Kellen said, his voice cautious, "the vessel shows no signs of life except for one sealed chamber. Sensors indicate a single life form. Remains, though it is weak. Whoever or whatever is inside survived immense stress." Orlis's heart quickened. This could be the proof she had been waiting for. "Prepare a team to open the chamber carefully. I want to see this human myself, she said. Her voice calm but filled with anticipation. The boarding team moved forward, carefully approaching the chamber at the far end of the room. The chamber's transparent walls revealed a figure slumped inside, covered in scratches and bruises. Wearing a strange, patched suit of metal and fabric, it was small, barely taller than a child compared to the Silurians, but even unconscious. The human radiated a quiet strength. One of the team members, a young officer named Lyra, whispered, "It's so tiny. How could this being survive out here?" Orlis leaned closer to the screen. "Tiny, yes," she murmured, "but perhaps stronger than we realize. Watch carefully." The team carefully released the seals, and the chamber hissed open. Slowly, the human stirred. Eyes open, sharp and alert, scanning the unfamiliar surroundings. He did not panic. He did not cry out. Instead, he measured the situation with precise focus. Muscles tensed and ready to react. "Identify yourself," one of the officers demanded. The human's voice was calm, yet firm. "Commander Mason Hale. Vessel damaged. Requests medical assistance." And situational briefing. Orlis felt a thrill of surprise. This was no ordinary being. He spoke clearly, with authority, even though he was clearly injured. She had expected someone frightened, weak, or confused. Instead, she saw intelligence, discipline, and unshakable confidence. "Commander Hale," Orlis said, her voice steady but filled with awe, "you are in the Silurian Empire. You are safe for now. Tell me what happened." Hale's eyes flicked toward the walls of the chamber, then back at the officers. "My vessel was attacked near the outer rim by a force unknown. We were outnumbered and outgunned. I fought through the vessel to protect nearby colonies. I activated the jump drive manually. The ship survived, but it is damaged." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. The outer rim was dangerous, yes, but nothing in their records suggested an enemy capable of causing such damage to a human ship. Orlis, however, felt a growing sense of excitement. "You fought alone?" she asked. Hale nodded, his jaw firm. "Not completely alone. My crew assisted when possible, but most were lost or incapacitated. I did what was necessary. The mission succeeded." Orlis's mind raced. The legends had spoken of humans surviving incredible odds, but hearing it directly from one, she could hardly believe it. And yet, everything she saw, his calm, precise manner, the evidence on his vessel confirmed it. "Princess," Kellen said cautiously, "this being is remarkable. If the legends are true, then he is living proof. We must ensure his safety and learn everything he can teach us." Orlis nodded, agreed. "But we must also learn why his enemies attacked and how he survived alone. Commander Hale, your courage is impressive, but your knowledge may save more than just yourself. The Empire must understand what threats are approaching." Hale sat up slowly, assessing his injuries. His survival suit had multiple patches, some made from human materials, others from what appeared to be scavenged Silurian components. "I am capable of briefing," he said, "but first I need treatment. I cannot provide reliable information if I collapse." The medical team rushed forward, checking vitals, stabilizing wounds, and monitoring his oxygen levels. Even as they worked, Hale remained alert, scanning every detail of the chamber, every movement of the Silurians around him. Orlis felt a strange mix of admiration and curiosity. She had read every report, every sketch, every tale of human resilience, but seeing it firsthand, seeing a being so small yet capable of surviving what seemed impossible, was entirely different. The legends were no longer distant stories. They were real, embodied in this one remarkable individual. Hours passed as Hale recovered. Slowly, he began to talk, explaining the attack, the nature of his enemies, and how he had navigated the hazardous outer rim. His words were precise, concise, and filled with tactical insight. He spoke of the enemy's movements, their weaknesses, and the advanced technologies he had encountered. Orlis listened intently, fascinated. "You are truly extraordinary," she said finally. "No being of your size could have survived that, yet you did." Hale looked at her calmly. "Size is not strength," he said, adaptability, intelligence, and courage matter more. Humans survive because we find ways to turn disadvantages into advantages. We improvise, we endure, and when necessary, we fight. Her court watched in awe. Many had laughed at the legends before, but now silence reigned. They were witnessing the reality of a species they had long dismissed as minor, fragile, or irrelevant. Yet here was a being who embodied the essence of the stories. "Commander Hale," Orlis said, her tone firm yet respectful, "you have demonstrated what few could even imagine. You have survived, adapted, and endured against impossible odds. I wish to understand more about your people. Your knowledge may be vital to the Empire." Hale nodded slowly. "I can provide what I know, but the threat I faced is not limited to my ship. Others may follow. They are intelligent, organized, and dangerous. You must prepare." The princess felt a chill. She had believed her empire was safe in its core territories, that the outer rim was distant and inconsequential. But now she realized that even her vast fleets could be unprepared for a threat this cunning. And yet, she also realized something more important. With this human at her side, perhaps they could meet the threat, perhaps for the first time. The Silurian Empire could see that humans were not to be underestimated. Over the next few days, Hale began to adapt to the Silurian environment. He studied their technology, learned their protocols, and even began suggesting improvements to their systems. Every recommendation was met with surprise and sometimes disbelief. His instincts, honed through survival against impossible odds, were unlike anything the Silurians had encountered. Orlis observed quietly, her respect growing with each passing day. The human was small, yes, but he thought like no one she had ever met. He analyzed situations quickly, anticipated moves before they happened, and adapted with remarkable speed. In the span of a week, he had become an invaluable advisor even to the Empire's highest commanders. And yet, he remained humble. He never boasted. He never demanded recognition. His focus was always on the mission, on survival, on the greater good. This, perhaps more than any of his feats, impressed the princess one evening. As the sun set beyond the crystal windows of the flagship, Orlis approached Hale personally. He was in the training chamber, running simulations of battle maneuvers with precision and discipline. He moved with energy and focus, not letting his injuries slow him down. "You are remarkable," she said softly, watching him. "I doubted the legends of humans. I laughed at the idea of one being capable of such feats. But now I see I was wrong." Hale paused, turning to face her. "Legends often grow from truth, princess. They exaggerate details, yes, but they rarely invent courage where none exists." Orlis smiled, a mixture of admiration and humility. For the first time, she realized that humans were not just stories. They were real, and they were extraordinary, and in this small, disciplined, fearless being, she saw the living proof of everything she had once doubted. The princess knew that their encounter was only the beginning. A new chapter was unfolding in the history of the Silurian Empire, and at the heart of it was a human, a single, seemingly fragile being who could challenge the very myths of power, courage, and survival in ways no one had imagined. The legends were no longer tales. They had arrived in the form of Commander Mason Hale. The Silurian fleet had returned to their standard positions after the initial investigation of the mysterious human vessel. But the mood on the flagship was tense. Even with Commander Mason Hale safely aboard, questions lingered. How had one small human survived such an attack? And more importantly, were the enemies still following him? Princess Orlis walked the corridors of her flagship, her silver hair brushing her shoulders, her mind racing with possibilities. She had spent hours watching Hale adapt to their systems, seeing him work tirelessly despite his injuries. There was a calm in his movements that no Silurian commander had ever shown, an instinct, honed from survival, from facing death and still pressing forward. The training simulations were meant to prepare the fleet for any scenario. But Orlis noticed Hale did more than participate. He led. Every suggestion he made, every maneuver he tested, was precise, clever, and often counterintuitive. Silurian officers watched in awe as he spotted weaknesses they had overlooked, predicted enemy patterns before they occurred, and suggested strategies that combined speed, intelligence, and adaptability. Even Kellen, her chief strategist, had to admit, Princess, his mind operates unlike anything I have ever encountered. The legends, perhaps they underestimated him? Orlis smiled, though her expression was serious. Not underestimated. We simply never saw it with our own eyes. Now we do. Hale's recovery was nearly complete. Though he still bore scars from the battle, his energy was returning, and his focus remained sharp. One morning, Orlis personally escorted him to the observation deck overlooking the nebula frontier. The vast expanse of stars stretched endlessly, punctuated by distant planets and drifting asteroids. The enemy, wherever they were, could strike from this void without warning. Hale gazed outward silently, then turned to Orlis. Princess, he said, his voice steady, they will come. The attack was not random. Whoever destroyed my ship has intelligence and reach. They will continue to hunt, and not just me. Others may be at risk. Orlis felt a chill, but she nodded. Then we will prepare. Your knowledge is invaluable. Hale, your survival has already proven that humans are extraordinary. Hale gave a faint smile, but his eyes remained serious. Extraordinary. Yes, but only because survival leaves no room for failure. We adapt, we endure, and when necessary, we fight. Their conversation was interrupted by the bridge alarms. Red lights flashed as sensors detected multiple objects emerging from hyperspace. Near the nebula frontier, the readings were clear. The enemy fleet Hale had fled from had arrived, and in far greater numbers than anyone anticipated. Princess, we are outnumbered, Kellen reported, his voice tight. The enemy fleet is larger than our records predicted. We may not hold them with conventional tactics. Orlis's gaze did not waver. She had seen Hale adapt, improvise, and survive against impossible odds. If any being could help them face this threat, it was him. She turned to Hale. Your turn, she said simply. Tell us what to do. Hale stepped forward, his calm demeanor radiating confidence despite the overwhelming odds. He quickly analyzed the fleet formations on the display. They rely on predictable attack patterns, he explained. Their technology is advanced, yes, but rigid. If we move unpredictably, we can force them into mistakes. Split the fleet into smaller units, use the asteroid belts as cover, and exploit the blind spots in their sensors. Speed and deception are our greatest weapons. Kellen blinked, astonished. Your strategies. They contradict centuries of Silurian naval doctrine. Hale shrugged. Doctrine works until the enemy adapts. We cannot allow predictability to be our weakness. Humans survive by thinking beyond patterns, by improvising when all else fails. I will guide you through it. The bridge fell silent as the fleet prepared to follow Hale's instructions. Silurian captains exchanged uneasy looks. Trusting a human, a being so small compared to them, to lead a counterattack seemed reckless, but the proof of his survival and tactical genius was undeniable. As the enemy fleet drew closer, Hale continued issuing commands, coordinating with Silurian captains and adjusting strategies in real time. His mind worked like a finely tuned machine, calculating trajectories, energy outputs, and enemy responses in seconds. Every suggestion improved their chances of survival, turning what had seemed like certain defeat into a challenging but winnable engagement. Orlis watched him with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. The legends she had mocked, the stories she had laughed at, were alive in Hale's every movement. She realized then that human courage was not just about bravery, it was about clarity, adaptability, and relentless focus. The first shots rang out as the enemy fleet opened fire. Energy blasts streaked across the void, illuminating the darkness with bursts of light. Silurian ships dodged and weaved according to Hale's instructions, taking advantage of asteroid cover and executing unpredictable maneuvers. Each action forced the enemy into mistakes, scattering their formations and reducing the effectiveness of their firepower. Hale's calm voice issued commands through the communication channels. Left flank, pivot now. Use the asteroids to break their line. Concentrate fire on the lead vessels. Anticipate their next move and adjust immediately. Even the most seasoned Silurian captains found themselves following his orders without hesitation. The human's instincts were flawless, his confidence contagious. Slowly, the tide of the battle began to shift, but the enemy was not easily defeated. Their fleet adapted, altering attack patterns and coordinating complex maneuvers. Each time the Silurian fleet executed Hale's strategies successfully, the enemy countered in unexpected ways. The battle became a test of wits, courage, and endurance, a true challenge of skill against overwhelming odds. Orlis felt her pulse quicken. She had expected a typical space engagement, relying on firepower and brute strength. Instead, she was witnessing a masterclass in strategy, led by a being no taller than a child. She had laughed at the legends, and now she found herself in awe. Hours passed as the battle raged. The Silurian fleet, guided by Hale, adapted continuously, exploiting weaknesses in the enemy formation and preserving their own ships despite severe pressure. Each successful maneuver strengthened the crew's morale, and the legend of the human commander grew with every victory. At one critical moment, the enemy targeted the flagship directly, concentrating overwhelming firepower. Hale's eyes scanned the incoming attacks. Brace for impact, but don't panic. Execute the decoy maneuver. The enemy will follow the decoys, and we will strike their weak rear formation. The ships obeyed. Energy blasts streaked past, missing the flagship by mere meters. Decoy vessels darted into view, drawing enemy fire. The Silurian fleet surged forward, striking the enemy's rear while they were distracted. The tactic worked flawlessly. The enemy fleet began to falter, their formations broken, their attacks uncoordinated. Hale's strategies, combined with the courage and skill of the Silurian crews, had turned the battle from near-certain defeat to a winnable fight. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the enemy began to retreat, slipping back into hyperspace in disarray. Silence returned to the nebula frontier. The Silurian fleet had survived because of one human. Orlis exhaled slowly, her heart still racing. She turned to Hale, who stood calmly, surveying the aftermath. His small frame seemed almost serene amidst the chaos. You did it," she said, awe in her voice. "You turned the battle. Alone, you could not have survived the enemy, yet with your guidance, we did. You are extraordinary." Hale shook his head slightly. "I did not fight alone. The fleet followed instructions. Courage alone does not win battles. Coordination, intelligence, and adaptation matter. But I am glad we survived." Kellen approached, still recovering from the shock of seeing a human outperform centuries of Silurian strategy. "Princess, the legends were right. Humans are truly remarkable." Orlis nodded, her eyes fixed on Hale. "More than remarkable. He is living proof that legends have power because they are based in truth. And that truth is standing right before us." Hale looked at her with calm eyes. "Legends are not just about strength or size. They are about endurance, focus, and courage in the face of impossible odds. Humans survive because we refuse to give up, no matter how small we seem." Orlis smiled softly, finally understanding. The myths she had once mocked were not exaggerations, they were warnings. Stories meant to inspire respect for a species whose resilience defied belief. And now, in this small, disciplined, fearless being, she had seen the truth. The princess realized that the encounter was only the beginning. A greater challenge still awaited them, but with Hale at her side, she felt hope. She had doubted the legends, but now she knew. Humans were not just survivors. They were legends in motion, proof that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome even the greatest threats in the galaxy. And the galaxy was about to see just how far one determined human could change the course of history. The calm after the battle was deceptive. Though the Silurian fleet had survived the first encounter, Princess Orlis knew this was far from over. Commander Hale's warnings were clear. The enemy was intelligent, organized, and relentless. They would not give up so easily. The princess stood on the observation deck of her flagship, her silver hair catching the dim light of distant stars. Hale stood beside her, scanning the nebula with sharp, calculating eyes. Even after his recent recovery, he exuded quiet confidence, a presence that seemed to calm the nervous officers around them. Princess, Hale said, his voice steady. They will return. The first attack was only a probe. They are testing defenses, learning our strategies. Next time, they will come stronger. Orlis nodded. Then we will be ready. Your guidance has already turned a losing fight into a victory. I trust you will help us again. Hale's eyes narrowed. Trust is earned through preparation. We need to anticipate their moves before they make them. Predictability will be our enemy's advantage. Hours later, alarms blared throughout the fleet. Sensors detected multiple ships emerging from hyperspace, far larger and more heavily armed than before. The enemy had returned, this time with overwhelming force. Energy pulses lit the void as they moved into attack formation, demonstrating coordination that even Silurian veterans found impressive. Kellen's voice was tense over the communication channels. Princess, the enemy has returned in full force. Their fleet is larger than anything in our records. We cannot meet them head-on without serious risk of loss. Orlis looked at Hale, who was already analyzing the fleet's movements. Commander, what do we do? She asked. Hale studied the display carefully, tracing the enemy's ships with precise calculations. Direct confrontation will fail. We cannot rely on brute strength. Instead, we will use their size against them. Divide our fleet into mobile units, use the asteroid belts for cover, and exploit their blind zones. Speed, adaptability, and surprise are our weapons. Kellen shook his head. It contradicts all traditional tactics. Are you sure? Hale's expression was calm but firm. Trust me. Humans survive by using what others overlook. The enemy's strength is also their weakness. They depend on predictable formations. We will turn that predictability against them. Orlis nodded, giving the command. Follow his strategy. Every officer, every ship, obey his orders. The fleet moved into position. Silurian ships scattered into agile units, weaving through the asteroid fields with precision. The enemy, larger and confident, fired relentlessly, expecting the Silurians to falter under pressure. But Hale's plan unfolded perfectly. Left flank, Hale commanded. Pivot now. Draw their fire while the rear units strike their exposed engines. Timing is crucial. Wait for my signal. The Silurian captains followed, relying on the small humans' guidance. They dodged energy blasts, weaving through the rocky obstacles of the asteroid belts, and fired strategically, hitting weak points Hale had identified. The enemy grew frustrated, their attacks becoming disorganized. Orlis watched from the observation deck, amazed. She had expected chaos, panic, and fear in the face of such overwhelming odds. Instead, she saw coordination, precision, and calm. Hale's presence seemed to elevate everyone around him. Suddenly, one of the enemy's lead ships broke formation and accelerated toward the Silurian flagship. The energy shields shimmered under the attack, but Hale's voice cut through the bridge communications. Prepare the decoy drones. Draw their fire away from the flagship. Use the rear units to flank them. The crew executed the maneuver flawlessly. Drones darted ahead, mimicking the flagship's energy signature. The enemy ship followed the decoys, allowing Silurian units to strike its vulnerable side. Explosions lit the void as the enemy ship was disabled, forcing the others to adjust their strategy. Orlis's heart pounded. She had once doubted the legends, had laughed at the idea of a human being capable of such feats. Now she understood. Hale's mind was as powerful as any weapon in the galaxy. The enemy regrouped. Realizing their advantage was slipping, they attempted to concentrate fire on the mobile Silurian units, but Hale had anticipated this. Spread out. Use the asteroids to split their targeting. Concentrate fire on their command vessels. The Silurians followed his instructions, turning what seemed like a hopeless fight into a complex dance of strategy and execution. Energy blasts ricocheted across asteroid surfaces, and enemy ships collided with debris or each other. The tide of battle began to shift. Orlis noticed something remarkable. Hale's approach was not just about tactics. He was teaching the fleet to think differently, to adapt, and to trust their instincts. Even Silurian captains who had doubted him found themselves relying on his guidance, improvising in ways they never had before. Hours passed. The battle raged, each side testing the other's limits. The enemy's numbers were vast, but their rigid formations made them vulnerable. Hale anticipated their every maneuver, adjusting Silurian responses with precision. Rear units. He instructed, focus on the largest vessels. Disable their engines and communication arrays. The rest will follow automatically. The Silurian ships obeyed, and explosions erupted among the enemy fleet. Chaos spread among their ranks as coordination broke down. Hale's plan was working. The larger enemy fleet was now at a disadvantage because they could not respond quickly enough. Two unpredictable tactics, Orlis felt a mixture of awe and relief. She had doubted the human legends. She had believed a species so small could not withstand such danger. And yet here was Hale, turning a battle of overwhelming odds into a test of ingenuity and courage. Proving that humans were far more than myths, Kellen leaned close to her. Princess, this being is extraordinary. His mind, his strategy. I have never seen anything like it. Orlis nodded silently, watching Hale coordinate another complex maneuver. I know, she whispered, and the galaxy has only begun to see what humans can do. The enemy fleet began to falter. Ships were disabled, their formations broken, and their morale shaken. Hale's strategies, combined with the courage and skill of the Silurian crews, had once again turned the impossible into the possible. At the peak of the battle, an enemy supership attempted to strike the Silurian flagship directly. Energy blasts thundered through space, and the shields flickered under the strain. Hale's calm voice issued commands. Deploy the decoy formation. Draw them toward the asteroid belt. Timing is everything. The decoys worked perfectly. The enemy's supership followed the false targets, crashing into the rocky terrain of the asteroid field. Several smaller enemy ships collided with debris in the chaos. The remaining fleet was disorganized, demoralized, and vulnerable. Orlis exhaled slowly, relief flooding her. She turned to Hale. You have done it again. The fleet is safe. You are incredible. Hale shook his head. We did it together. I only guide. Courage and trust make survival possible. Kellen stepped forward, still in disbelief. Princess, the legends were not wrong. Humans are extraordinary, beyond what we ever imagined. Their resilience, their intelligence, their courage. It is real, and it is undeniable. Orlis nodded, her gaze fixed on Hale. The human commander was small, yes, but he possessed a strength far greater than size could measure. He embodied the very essence of the legend's intelligence, courage, adaptability, and the determination to survive against impossible odds. As the enemy fleet retreated into hyperspace, the Silurian fleet regrouped. The battle had been won, but the threat was far from over. Orlis realized that the galaxy was changing. Humanity, once considered weak and insignificant, had proven itself a force that could alter the course of war and history. Hale stood silently, observing the aftermath. He seemed almost calm, as if the chaos of battle was nothing more than another challenge to overcome. His small frame belied the vast impact he had on the outcome of the fight. Orlis approached him, her voice soft but filled with respect. Commander Hale, I doubted the legends. I mocked the stories. But now I see. Humans are not only survivors. You are living proof that courage, intelligence, and determination can overcome even the greatest threats. Hale looked at her calmly. Legends exist to remind others of what is possible. Humans survive because we refuse to give up. We adapt, we endure, and when necessary, we fight. The princess smiled, her respect and admiration clear. The encounter with Hale had changed everything she thought she knew about the universe. She had laughed at the myths of humanity, and now she understood that the truth was far more remarkable. The Silurian Empire had witnessed the power of one human, and the galaxy would soon learn that legends were not just stories, they were real. The calm after the battle was only temporary. Princess Orlis stood on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes scanning the distant nebulae, aware that the retreating enemy could regroup and strike again. The victory had been hard-earned, and while the fleet had survived, the galaxy was still dangerous. Beside her, Commander Mason Hale moved with quiet precision, reviewing the fleet's status reports. Despite the scars on his body, the discipline in his movements was unmistakable. Every officer and crew member who passed him bowed slightly, not just in respect for his accomplishments, but in awe of the calm authority that radiated from the small human. "Princess," Hale said, his voice calm yet firm, "the enemy is not gone. They will return if we do not prepare. But if we use strategy rather than sheer force, we can force them into mistakes. And mistakes can turn the tide completely in our favor." Orlis nodded. "Then we will prepare. Your guidance has saved the fleet twice already. I trust your judgment." Hale began coordinating repairs, reallocating resources, and planning training simulations. Every movement was calculated, precise, and effective. He moved among the Silurian officers, teaching them techniques, adjusting formations, and explaining strategies they had never considered. Kellen, who had once doubted the value of the human commander, now followed Hale's instructions without hesitation. "Princess, I have to admit," he said quietly, "I never imagined a human could lead us this effectively. Their courage, their intelligence, it's beyond what we imagined." Orlis watched Hale, a mixture of awe and admiration in her expression. "It is one thing to survive," she said, "but to teach, lead, and inspire, that is the mark of a legend." Days passed as the fleet prepared. Hale trained the crews relentlessly, demonstrating maneuvers, counterattacks, and strategies designed to exploit the enemy's predictable behavior. The Silurians learned to adapt, to think beyond traditional formations, and to trust one another and Hale's instincts. Finally, the sensors detected the enemy fleet again. This time, the numbers were even greater, and their ships had been reinforced with new technology. The threat was real, immediate, and overwhelming. The Silurian officers whispered among themselves, tension palpable in the air. Many feared the outcome, but Hale moved with calm authority, issuing orders and coordinating the fleet. "Stay focused," he said. "Do not panic. We have prepared for this. Adapt, improvise, and trust your instincts." Orlis watched him closely. She had once mocked the legends of humans, laughing at the idea that a species so small could overcome such odds. Now, she understood the truth. Hale was living proof that the tales had underestimated humanity's courage, intelligence, and adaptability. The enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace in formation, energy pulses illuminating the void. The flagship trembled slightly as the first shots rang out. Hale's voice cut through the chaos, clear and commanding. "Divide into mobile units. Use the asteroids for cover. Focus fire on their lead vessels. Watch for blind spots. Adapt to every change in their formation." The Silurian fleet obeyed, following Hale's guidance with precision. Energy blasts ricocheted across the asteroid fields, ships maneuvering with fluidity and speed. The enemy attacked relentlessly, but their patterns were anticipated, their weaknesses exploited. Orlis's pulse quickened. She had never witnessed a battle like this, not even in simulations. The small human at the center of it all moved calmly, analyzing every threat, adjusting every response, and predicting the enemy's moves before they occurred. One enemy ship broke formation and charged directly at the flagship, its massive weapons locked on target. Hale's eyes narrowed. Deploy the decoys. Lead them into the asteroid belt. Rear units, prepare to flank. The plan worked flawlessly. Decoy ships darted forward, mimicking the flagship's energy signature. The enemy ship followed, crashing into the rocky terrain of the asteroid belt. Smaller enemy vessels collided with debris, and chaos spread among the fleet. Orlis felt a mixture of awe and relief. The human commander had done it again, turning overwhelming odds into opportunity. The enemy fleet, confident and organized, was now vulnerable, exposed, and disorganized. Hale continued coordinating the fleet. Concentrate fire on their engines. Disable communication arrays. Force them to retreat. Silurian ships followed his instructions, energy blasts striking enemy vessels with precision. Explosions lit the void, scattering the remaining forces. Slowly, the enemy fleet began to fall apart, their formations broken, their morale shattered. Kellen turned to Orlis, his expression a mix of disbelief and admiration. "Princess, I have never seen anything like this. A single human strategy has turned what could have been disaster into a decisive victory." Orlis nodded silently, her eyes on Hale. The legends were true. Humans are not just survivors. They are more than that. They are masters of courage, intelligence, and strategy. And one standing before us has proven it beyond doubt. Hale, despite his small frame and battered appearance, remained composed. Legends exist to teach. They remind others what is possible when strength is measured not by size, but by resolve. Humans survive because we refuse to quit, adapt to every challenge, and face danger head-on. We endure. We overcome. As the last enemy ships retreated into hyperspace, silence settled over the battlefield. The Silurian fleet had survived, and they owed their victory to a being whose size belied his extraordinary abilities. Orlis stepped forward, placing her hand lightly on Hale's shoulder. Commander Hale, I once doubted the stories of your people. I laughed at the idea that humans could survive, let alone lead, against impossible odds. But now, I see the truth. You are a living legend. Hale's calm gaze met hers. Princess, I'm only one human. The lessons of my people are simple: courage, intelligence, and perseverance matter more than size. We adapt, we endure, and when necessary, we fight. You have seen the result. Legends are not exaggerations, they are proof of what is possible. The princess smiled, her admiration clear. She had laughed at the myths, dismissed the stories, and even questioned the truth of human courage. Now she understood. Legends existed because truth inspired them. And in Hale, she had witnessed the embodiment of every tale she had once doubted. Your people, your courage. It has changed how we see the galaxy, Orlis said. We will remember this day, and we will ensure that the Silurian Empire respects humanity, not just as a legend, but as a force worthy of honor and alliance. Hale nodded. Respect is earned through actions, not words. Today, we survived. Tomorrow, we prepare for whatever comes next. Humanity endures, and together, we face the galaxy with courage. The fleet cheered, their spirits lifted by the victory. For the first time, many Silurians understood what the legends had meant. Humans were not just survivors, they were masters of endurance, courage, and innovation. Orlis looked out over the stars, her mind full of possibilities. She had laughed at the legends, she had doubted, but she had learned that the truth was far greater than fiction. One human had stood against impossible odds, guided an entire fleet, and turned the course of battle with nothing but intelligence, courage, and determination. And now, the galaxy would remember the name of Mason Hale, the human who proved the legends true. The princess realized that the encounter was more than a victory. It was a reminder that courage, intelligence, and resolve could overcome any challenge. Legends were not simply stories, they were living proof of what beings could achieve. When they refused to give up, Hale stood on the bridge, calm and composed, surveying the victorious fleet. Though small in stature, he had proven that one human, guided by courage and intelligence, could change the course of history. The Silurian Empire had witnessed a legend in motion, and Princess Orlis knew that nothing would ever be the same. Humanity was no longer a distant myth. It was real, extraordinary, and a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. And as Hale turned to look at her, she knew one undeniable truth. The legends of humans were not only true, they were just the beginning. The stars outside shimmered with possibility, and the Silurian fleet, now united under the guidance of a human legend, prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy had learned that courage, adaptability, and determination could overcome even the greatest threats, and that one small human could change the fate of many. Princess Orlis smiled softly. The laughter she had once shared at the myths had vanished, replaced by respect, admiration, and hope. Humanity had proven its worth. Humanity had proven its courage. And humanity, embodied in one remarkable commander, had become a living legend.